Good morning. Good morning. How are we doing? We're all dead. We're not feeling good out there. It's summer. We're like out and about. It's hot. There's heat. There's smoke. It's so hot. Yeah, I underestimate how much the smoke affects me. I'm like driving in my truck and I have to have the windows down and it's pitch black out with smoke. And I'm like, well, it's too warm not to. So now I'm coughing through it, but that's fine. But we've been going through Matthew. So you've been with us. You know we're in Matthew. Open up those Bibles. Crack them open. Go over to Matthew. We're done the Sermon on the Mount. Crazy. We're in chapter 8 now. And this is what kind of was leading up to Sermon on the Mount, that Matthew tells us that Jesus was going throughout the region. He's preaching, teaching, and healing, okay? And so we've seen some of the chunks of that covered, essentially. The preaching and teaching aspect has been covered, that we go into the Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus lays out this reality for our life. And he says, you want to know what I'm all about? Here you go. And so he starts challenging your narrative of how you view the world. He's saying, here's a different worldview. Okay, it's not just saying, drop everything you know about anything. He says, how about you start looking at stuff a little bit differently? How we view identity, how we view what truth is, how we view sexuality, how we view money and love and people, relationships. He doesn't leave anything out. He really covers the basis. And so he's coming down off this mountain after teaching and preaching. And basically now we're moving into this next chunk of the healing. And what Matthew kind of does is he's backing up this authority that people have been seeing in Jesus. They're like, who is this guy, right? He doesn't talk like the scribes and the Pharisees. He doesn't talk like the people of the world. Who is he? And so he comes down from the mountain. And now essentially we cover these chunks of miraculous. That Jesus is backing essentially his ministry with like, look what I can do, right? You want healing, you want teaching, you want a new way of the world. Well, guess what? I can give all of it. I'm all encompassing, anything you want in life. And so this is essentially the healings now that follow the faith response as he comes down this mountain. So you can head over to chapter 8 and verse 1. And that's where we're going to start this morning. So Father, we just come before you. We are looking for your vision for life, your reality. That it's so much more than just words and teaching, but it's actually power. It's healing. That you give your Spirit to empower us, to be with us, to be a presence. Father, in our small view of the world, might you just expand that. Might you expand our vision of reality, that this could be real, this could be true, this could be exactly what we need every day of our lives. Give us that imagination, Lord, of you. So speak to us now, God, as we go into your words. Amen. Okay, so chapter 8, this is what it says. It says, when he came down from the mountain, large crowds followed him. And so right away, I just want to make this quick point that what we read there. He comes down from this mountain of teaching, and it says large crowds followed Jesus. And, we get very skeptical in church, especially maybe small town church. I don't know. Maybe I'm just misreading the room. I don't know. But we get skeptical of large crowds, of people who come before Jesus, big church maybe, mega church, these people that come and say, hey, there's revival here, because we look at it and we say, man, like they don't know what I've been through, right? My faith has longevity. Like I've believed in Jesus forever. I have all this history with Christ. These new people know nothing, right? Like these fresh Christians, who are they thinking they can get healing and power, and all they talk about is, how great this prayer thing is. And this is what I love, and it's so interesting that this small details added as he comes down the mountain. Large crowds followed him. Large crowds followed him. And so I have to admit, sometimes I'm skeptical as well. I'll look at big churches, I'll look at these different people and I say, well, they just like numbers. They just like people. They just want to pad it. Like there's nothing real happening there. And the challenge is that Matthew comes and says, actually, Jesus was all about crowds, right? Everywhere he went, there's crowds. How many people did he feed? 5,000 plus. 5,000 people were listening, following, teaching, give us Jesus. We want from you. We need from you. And so I love that we come to this, especially in a small town context, that people are very, very attracted to what? The offensive message of Jesus. People are attracted to this. He comes and says, you've thought this way your whole life. And that's what he's saying to you as we go through this Sermon on the Mount, through Matthew. And he says, you've been taught this, but I say to you, and it's offensive. I say to you, you've been hating your enemies, well, guess what? Love them. Go the extra mile, give your shirt, be participating in the church. And it's offensive because I want to be comfortable. I don't want to have to do these things. I don't want to look at Jesus and say, change my worldview. And so people, this is what's so unique, is that it attracts people because they say, I've been doing it all wrong. My whole life messed up. I've been, just following the crowds. I've been doing what, is status quo. And Jesus says, it's attractive when I speak against your life. That people want something new, and great crowds followed him. I hope we are a church that is, I say this, not content with empty pews, with empty people, with our neighbors just, we talk over the fence, or we, participate at work, and we never actually have a real conversation with someone because we are so dull and just not ready for a crowd. We don't want people being here because it's comfortable. And he says, people follow Jesus because it's attractive. I want to see this church grow numerically and then in depth of spiritually and faith-wise. I want to see people come into these seats because they say, man, that is so offensive to my life that there's nothing I've ever heard about it before. And I want it. I want more of it. Okay, there's this author, I forget which author, but he's talking about, I've been reading this, it's called Purpose-Driven Church, maybe Rick Warren, and he talks about at the Great Commission, there's only two options. Right? There's two options of Great Commission. Go make disciples or you are not. There's two choices in the church. And the crowds gathered. Why? Because they're making disciples. Because people were changing. Lives were changing. And essentially, there's an option for failure when it comes to your faith in the Great Commission. And the failure is this, that people are not attracted to the message because we're not giving it to them. Because people are not drawn in by our lives and by how we engage with them. That people are not hearing this message. And so this is the Great Commission question. Are we filling the seats with people that are saying, man, I need this? Or are we doing nothing about it? Because the crowds followed Jesus. They needed something new. There was a narrow way of life. It spoke against every aspect that we think is good. And it just was a growing, exploding church. In Acts, right, it says thousands were added to their number as they heard this message. Do you think that people in your life, if you spoke this message to them truly, if you lived this message to them truly, that they would actually maybe come and be changed and transformed? Because I would say yes, because that's what happens in the Bible. Every time someone hears this message, they're changed or they completely reject it. This is the choice. You don't just sit on it in the middle. And so this oppositional message of Jesus are crowds of people. There's crowds. I want to see people flock to this place. Flock to things we do. Want something greater out of life, something deeper out of life. I want you all to feel like there's something deeper, something greater in your life than maybe just receiving this message and just me talking at you. Don't let me just talk at you. Let this change yourself. Not my words, but the Bible's words. What God's put before you, okay? And so then he moves on. It says, the large crowds are coming down the mountain. It says, right away, a man with leprosy came up, knelt before him, saying, Lord, if you're willing, can you make me clean? And it says, reaching out his hand, Jesus touched him, saying, I am willing, be made clean. And immediately his leprosy had left him. Okay, so here's the scene. Hundreds of people coming down this place. He's just been teaching these people, the disciples. And this leper approaches Jesus. And if you probably know what leprosy is, if you've been in church at all, we talk about leprosy. I feel like, every quarter or whatever, we're into leprosy of some sort. But if you don't know what leprosy is, it's this horrible disease, and it's not treated back in this day. And it's a skin disease that causes boils and sores, and it would often leave the person without nerve endings, where they can't feel pain anymore. It's horrible. It's awful. And so you would get these lepers who would lose limbs. They would lose fingers. They would lose their nose because they'd pick at it. They would lose the nerve endings, and this disease just took over them, right? It's a horrible picture of a reality of living. You do not want leprosy back in the day. So this physical pain that would just be permeating your life forever until you die. And it wasn't only a physical pain. It was actually it was spiritually, but also emotionally and mentally. It encompassed the entire person because you were ostracized from the community. If you were diseased as a leper, because it could transfer, people did not want to be with you. So they would, they make lepers communities where if you're a leper, you can go, you can get community in this place where, other people have leprosy and you're not getting each other sick. And so you'd be maybe in this type of community, but everybody else, everywhere else, you could not go and participate with them, right? You've heard you'd have to walk as a leper, you'd say unclean, yelling unclean ahead of you. And that was the message of your whole life. Everything you tell yourself every day is that I am unclean, I'm unworthy, I'm unloved, I'm undeserved, I'm worthless, essentially, to this society. And the spiritual meaning of leprosy actually comes from the Old Testament in Numbers and Leviticus. Leprosy is the sign of divine judgment because God, in a form of judgment, sent leprosy. And then on the opposite end of that, if you were healed from leprosy because there's no cure, it was divine intervention. It was a spiritual intervention that God healed you because you could not be healed. And so there was this purification law that if you were healed out in Leviticus, that you would bring yourself before the priest and say, look at me, I'm clean, I've been divinely intervened with, and I'm healed. And they would then bring you back into the fold of God. So just keep that in your mind for a second. This is what leprosy is, okay? This is the man approaching hundreds of people. And it says right away, this man goes, okay? He's not hesitant. He's probably running and shouting, unclean, unclean, approaching all this group of people following Jesus. And I love this. It says, notice, right away, Lord, if you're willing. And so there's a couple things that happen with this man. We're going to look at a couple things that are going on here. And the first is the healing, that Jesus will heal the leper. And the leper, when it says right away, he's running up to Christ. And he had no doubt in his mind that Jesus could heal him. There was no doubt that Jesus could overcome this disease. And he comes and he says, Jesus, if you're willing, will you make me clean? And I love the faith of the leper that he probably maybe had heard some stories and he'd seen the history of who Jesus was. And sometimes we sit in a place like this and we are living in a reality where the power and the miraculous is explained away. The power of God, the existence of God is explained into some other dimension. That we don't talk about that. That's for the movies. That's for Marvel, when they do crazy things with their characters. And we come before the scriptures and we think that, I'm reading these passages to you and we're like, yeah, that's great, that's good, that's true. If I can be loving, that's great. If I could be giving, that's great. If I could do all this stuff, it's great. And we sit there, and I've talked with people about church who say, I like church, I like the morality, I like the ethics, I think Jesus was a good teacher, I just don't know about the power. I just don't know about the Holy Spirit stuff. I just don't know about the whole God in heaven existing forever stuff. And this is such a problem even for us who follow Jesus, is we like the words of him, but then we leave the power just behind. This is the opposite of what the leper did. He said right away, Jesus, I know you can heal me. I know that is possible for my life. I've heard about you. And we come and we just read this, and it is filled with accounts of healing, of people who are being answered by prayer, of the church growing, of the Spirit descending, of the gifts empowering people. And yet we sit here and we go, well, I'm unsure about the power part. I can take the words. I don't know if I can take the full Jesus. And what we need to start doing is coming to him in full knowledge that the power is always present. That Jesus can heal you. Jesus can give you comfort. Jesus can change your life a different direction. He can do whatever he wants. And this kind of breaks down two questions. And when he asks this important question, which we'll get into, are you willing? This encounter is the dynamic between two things, the sovereign power of Jesus and the sovereign will of Jesus. The leper knew he had the power. The leper had the faith. The leper knew who Jesus was. He didn't doubt that. But he comes and asks this very important question, Jesus, if you're willing, if you're willing. And I just want you to know, if you are desiring healing or power or restoration or comfort or relief or faith, the things of God, Jesus has power far beyond what you know, need, maybe desire. That's not the question. The question then for us is this: Jesus, are you willing? Or, Jesus, is this your will in my life? Is this your will? Now, we get offended by that. You wonder maybe if I say offensive message, I hope I slightly just offended you. Because what we love in our life is our own will. We love to run our life, right? Like if I could have the perfect existence of just Levi, I would have to think about nobody else. I'd have to do nothing hard. I'd have to just, maybe not have a family. I'd have to, not care about the church or this job or people or prayer or any of these things because I'm a selfish man who says, well, my will would probably be the easiest path. Nothing hard about it, nothing narrow. And so Jesus comes and the leper shows us, I know you're powerful if you're willing. Is it your will? How many times have you sat in prayer or contemplation or in agony and cried out the words, Jesus, your will. Please let it be your will just do your will in my life. That's usually not the case. Usually the case is change this. Lord, please do that. Lord, I want that. Lord, this would feel good. God, I didn't mean it that way. And we don't sit there and go, you know what? All I need is I know the power's there, but are you willing to do this? Is it what you want for me? Is it a good thing? Right? The Father gives good gifts, and sometimes what we think is a good gift is actually harmful. And so we sit behind Jesus and we say, Lord, are you willing to do this for me? Right? In the case of the leper, it was Jesus' will. But remember Paul in 2 Corinthians, he writes this, that there is a thorn in his flesh. Literally maybe a sin issue. We don't really know what the thorn was. Something happening to Paul, this great writer, theologian. And he's saying, Lord, take this from me. I've asked you many times. I don't want to have this maybe addiction anymore. I don't want to struggle with money or pornography or relationships or whatever it might be. It's a thorn in my flesh. Paul is writing this and he says, I've asked many times, let it be your will, Lord. And it says this, to keep him humble so he would boast in Christ. God gives him an answer, and he gives Paul this answer. He doesn't remove it so that he would know that Jesus' grace is sufficient for you, that my power is made perfect in weakness. Do you ever just sit with the things of your life that are painful and hard and addictive, and they just tear you down and mentally, and it's hurting your relationship, and it's hard to combat it, to pray about it, to fight it, to say, I don't want this in my life anymore, Lord, and say, you know what? Take this, God, but your will be done even if you leave it. And if you leave it, I will still pursue you because it will remind me that you are sufficient in anything in this side of heaven. That your grace is enough. That through pain and suffering and confusion, your grace is enough. That you don't have to remove anything, God, if it be your will. How many times has that been your prayer? How many times have you sat there and said, this hurts more than anything, Lord, but if it's your will that I deal with it, I'll have it. Because your grace is sufficient. It's enough. This thorn in my flesh, it's perfected. My weakness shows your perfection. We just want Jesus to move his will to what we want. And so this is the better question in our life. Lord, I know you're willing, or I know you have the power more so, but are you willing? Are you willing to remove it? Are you willing to let me go on this path? And if he says no, how does that look in your life? Do you just then abandon your faith? Do you walk away from Jesus? Do you say, well, I guess I'll just go suffer with this somewhere else? Or do you say, okay, your grace is enough. Your power is perfect in my weakness. So this is the first question that we're finding. This is the first thing. There's the power and the will of Jesus. These are separate things, but beneath the surface, there's another thing. And this is the second thing. It's the cleansing. The cleansing. So Lord, right away, Lord, if you're willing, and this was his question, if you're willing, make me clean. Make me clean. The leper knew that Jesus could heal. And he's asking, Lord, are you willing? He doesn't say, Lord, are you willing to just take away the leprosy? Are you willing to let someone help me? Are you willing to, make me more faithful? Are you willing to do all these things? He actually says, Lord, are you willing to make me clean? Clean me. And this cleansing, the whole point of what he's asking goes back to that Old Testament and Numbers and Leviticus, that when you were a leper, it was this sign of divine judgment, and if you were cleansed, this divine intervention, that you'd go and show yourself. And what happened when you'd show yourself that you were clean, that people would then accept you back into the people of God. You'd be made right again. And so what he's essentially asking is, he's not saying, just give me another miracle. He's not saying, just make this go away, make this easy. He says, bring me back in, God. Bring me back into the fold of God's people. He's saying, I want to be cleansed that I can actually join in again with the community of faith, back into the covenantal people, spiritually and ritually clean. And this is what Jesus says, I am willing, be made clean. Be made clean. And this is important. He reaches out his hand and he touches this leper. Like that, you don't do that. You don't touch a leper, right? It's like when someone's sick and they come to church and you're like, oh, why are you at church? And you all make a bubble around them so they can't get out. You don't touch the person because that would then make you sick. And that's how the super spreader starts and kids and all the problem, right? But this is what Jesus does. He comes to the man and he says, I'm willing to bring you back into the fold of God. He reaches out his hand and he touches the leper. Right? And the next healing that we're going to cover is the centurion and his servant. And he doesn't even have to be in the room. He just speaks a word. Right? So what's the difference here? Jesus doesn't have to be, there even to heal someone. He could just say, sure, be made clean. He doesn't have to touch him. He doesn't have to show this affection. And this is the problem, is that we often just want this vagueness of God of like, just give me what I want. And Jesus is always moving closer to us. He wants deeper relationship. He wants us to go wide and far. And so when we see him touch the person, leprosy does not infect Jesus. And this is what's amazing about Jesus' power, is that his power actually moves into the leper and it starts raiding and taking over the disease, and it changes his body. His boils and cuts and scars probably were healed. They went away. And his power infects all of the darkness, right? The light and the darkness. And this is what Jesus is continually doing, that he's moving himself into the proximity of those who need him. He's pursuing, he's searching, he's reaching, he's touching. That famous painting, right? I think it's Michelangelo, when it's the hands touching from man and from God. This is the entirety of the gospel, that Jesus is moving close. And this is the whole goal of what he's doing, that he's going to bring the desperate and the sick and the poor and the hurting into the people of God. That when we look at God and say, heal me, God, what our better question should be, cleanse me. Cleanse me. Bring me into the people of God. Bring me into the church. Bring me into deeper relationship with you. And this is what he wants, his power to invade a broken world. And so just like he's touching the leper and healing him, and it's moving into him and consuming him, then he comes to his church. And this is the image for us, that when we know the power of Christ and the will of Jesus, and we're living in that, when you're not just sitting in a pew staring at me and your life is actually changed and different, and you say, I want to be different. I want people to know this. I don't want to be just stagnant in my life. I want people to be reached by Christ. We take the power of Jesus into this broken world, into the darkened world, and we actually start infecting disease with it. That it's not, the church that's destroyed or killed or burnt down, but it's actually the people around us that are so affected. And I think that's the vision and the goal for a place in people like us. That is the Great Commission. It says, go do these things. It's not just go be stagnant in life forever. It's go and put this worldview to practice. That you don't just come and sit, right? We as a church, my hope and goal is any moment that if there's a ministry that could actually impact people in this town, we'd be willing to say yes, and that people would step up and go do it. Maybe it's missionaries down to Ashcroft. I don't know what's happening down there, okay? They're like the competition town in my mind. Maybe that's wrong. Whatever it might be, right? That we are going out to the world, right? The world doesn't step up to your door and knock and say, sometimes it does, but usually it's not knock, 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 hey, I'm not a Christian. I don't know what to do about my life. Can you help me? That's not how your life's going to go, I promise. And this is what Jesus is saying. My power moves into darkness and changes it. And that's what the church should be doing. That's where we should be moving. I don't want to just sit here stagnant. I want to spend money, spend resources, spend people, spend faith, spend prayer, spend power in any way possible that people be changed in this town. That is our goal. Okay, it's not my goal to make you comfortable in a chair. It's not my goal to make things easy here. It's my goal that people would know Christ. And that's what happens to this leper, right? He reaches out and touches him. What if we were to go and touch culture in every way and form? At your coffee meetings, what if you touch culture there? Instead of just having a gossip session, you actually talked about something real. At work, you go to the mine and you say, man, these are some rough dudes. I just don't like them. What if you touched culture and actually invested in them? When you are with your families and grandkids or your kids, that you actually look at these people of discipleship problem and say, if only they would actually know Jesus, something might be different. My family might not fight as much, or we might have a way through things when the power of Jesus invades darkness. And this is what Jesus is doing. This unwanted, exiled, ill, infectious, rejected by all, Jesus moves towards. When's the last time in your life that you moved towards an undesirable person? I know it's very hard in my life. When I see someone that's frustrating or hard or, critiquing or whatever it might be, I like to kind of add some barriers, which there are healthy boundaries. I'm not saying just go and be abused by people, but when's the last time you moved towards a difficult person and said, you need Jesus? It's a hard question to answer. And this is what Jesus does. He touches the leper, grabs the ill, infects his life, and changes him. And if we get this image, if we understand the reality of God's power in the church, and we stop just doubting it, right? We're not just about words, we're about the power as well, right? The need that people need to be cleansed, brought into the fold of God. It's not just about healing. The cleansing was that spiritually they would know Jesus. That people need Jesus' power and this new reality and healing and prayer, and they need to be kingdom people. And I just pray we're going to be people that move towards, not away. We move towards. When the Spirit descended and it said, you've been empowered by the Holy Spirit. You've been given power. Power to pray, to heal, to cleanse, to bring people in, and yet we act like we don't even know what it is. And he keeps going after he moves into, reaches out, touches, he cleanses him. And then he says this interesting, then Jesus told him, see that you don't tell anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded as a testimony to them. And so what Jesus is talking about here is what we call the messianic secret, that Jesus quite a few times tells people not to talk about what he's done. He doesn't want just people, talking about his miracles and being some miracle worker. He didn't want that to be what was spreading, that if you come to him, he'll just touch you, you'll be healed and whatnot. That was not his goal. The goal was not just healing. The goal was the cleansing, that it would be not temporary relief in life, but a permanent fix. And sometimes I think that we come to church and Jesus and we say, give me the temporary, right? Just give me things that make me feel good now. My prayer might make me feel good now. But he says, I want the eternal. I don't need to be some miracle worker that people just come and say, give me the temporary fix. I want to cleanse them forever, that their complete worldview be changed for Jesus. And so this is what he wants. He wants this new reality to land in people's lives. His primary goal, which is interesting, that he came to preach and to teach. That's the primary goal here. He wasn't trying to, just heal people so that he could grow his fame, because that would be too easy of a heaven, basically, of, hey, believe in me because I'll do the miraculous. It would be like Jesus walking through the doors and saying, I'm real, I'm here, come on, let's go. That's not what he's up to. He's saying, I need people to actually change their whole vision of what they believe in. That's the reality. And so he's trying to control this information so they wouldn't confuse who he was, and eventually Jesus would have a time and a place to be revealed as the Son of God on the cross. That's the place where he defeats sin, Satan, and death. And this is the thing, is that we all become this leper standing before Jesus at the cross. And our question is in this: Jesus, are you sure you got the message right? Are you sure the words weren't mixed up or jumbled? The question is, where's your purpose and your grace? Where's your power made perfect in me? Because we all stand before Christ on the cross. We all stand before him and we say, either you've died here and you rose again, and that has to mean something, or I'm just going to go out in my life and just continue to think how I think, to think nothingness, to just, go with the flow. My friends say this, the news says this, and we're just invaded, bombarded. Or do we stand as the leper and say, Jesus, did you cleanse me? Am I made whole? Is your power perfect? And how has that healed me, not just physically, but spiritually? He reaches out his power to bring you into this reality of life. And this is what I just want you to know. This whole message is basically, how are you going to deal with being cleaned by Jesus? How are you going to go to the world, right? Like when the leper shows himself to the priest and was brought back into the people of God, he didn't just go living life and never die, okay? That's not like the goal. The goal wasn't just life forever, okay? He didn't get healed and then he's like, good, I'm good to go. And he's running around the world and he's, yeah, Jesus is good. And then, he gets sick again. He's like, well, where's Jesus? I need to be healed again. That wasn't the point. The point is that you come and you say, Jesus, have you healed me? And then how do I go and bring that to people? Right? And his message completely changed, right? From unclean. That was his message of life. And sometimes that's our message of life, that we're unclean, we're unworthy, we want our will, we want our desire, we want whatever we want out of life. And it changed to cleansed, saved, redeemed. This man just didn't want life and, healing. That's not the point. If your only goal at a Jesus is to just give me healing and make me last a little bit longer in life, you've missed the point. Because one day the leper got hit by a cart and he died on the side of the road, okay? He got hit and then he was left there and then he's just, I'm making it up. It's not true Bible. Don't go look this up. Did the leper get hit by a cart and die? No. He died one day. The goal wasn't the life. The goal was Jesus. Clean, redeemed, cleansed into the people of God. Aaron, if you want to come up, I'll just finish with this story of this theologian named Timothy Keller, who I really like. He's a great guy. But he had pancreatic cancer. And I think this is what I want to move into, that when we think about our healing and our faith and our realities being changed, and when we get into this next verse about the centurion's faith, it's all about authority and this vision of will, of where are you going to go in your life, of what is the authority, who speaks, who has permission, who has influence, who has all this stuff of what we're going to get into. And Timothy Keller, he suffered with this pancreatic cancer, and he said he prayed for healing twice a day, every day, for 3 years as he suffered with this. That all he wanted was to continue his ministry. He was a little bit older, but he was still preaching and teaching. He's meeting with people. He's loving people. And every day he would pray, Lord, heal me twice a day. I don't want this. I don't want to die from this. And yet over these years, he deteriorated, did not get his healing, did not get the prayer answered, did not see God move in the powerful way that he was hoping for. And he said by the end of his life, when he's on his deathbed, that all he wanted was God to be glorified. And he said his prayer shifted. Lord, if it your will. Lord, if you be willing. Lord, if this be my reality. Lord, if you would have me live through this and continue the mission. Lord, I'm underneath of you now. And eventually, through struggle and pain, he never gave up. He never lost hope. He never let his faith waver. And he eventually just died in his bed at peace, calm, knowing that the will of the Father was to bring him home. And I think that's the biggest question from this when the leper approaches him. We have the faith. We know you have the power. Where is the authority? Lord, I just need your will. And it's your will, Lord, that I'm going to go. I'm not going to get the healing. I'm not going to get the cleansing. Father, might I still have the faith to then go to people around me and then reach out, even in pain, despite pain. To go and reach out and say, you need to come sit in church. Reach out and say, you need to come over for dinner. Reach out and say, is this the best choice in your life? Reach out and say, I know you're struggling. Let me help and love you, because we are sitting in the will of God, and his will is that people be cleansed into his church, not just healed temporarily. We all die. We all pass on. We all go through pain and hardship. But how are you going to live under it? With what you want, with what feels good in your temporary. Or saying, Lord, is it your will? Are you willing? And might I move with that? Father, we all experience pain and heartbreak, and we all desire healing of sorts. We all go through confusion. We all have a vision of our life, of what we want it to be. And Lord, you promise such a greater vision. You promise power. You promise closeness. That, Father, you can heal. You can take things away, but you can also give and you can leave, Lord. Might we, in your will, reach out to the people around us, that when we say, Father, it's not what I want, it's not exactly what I think I need, Lord, but what you know I need. And that people need to be elevated, changed, cleansed into the people of God. That is our goal, Lord. I ask that you align our will with yours, and that we would just know that your mercy is enough, your power made perfect through our weakness, that you be glorified, Lord, in anything that we experience where we just don't want to have to endure, but we'd endure faithfully for you.